The Working Audio Tools is heating up this week because we are taking our mix comparison concept one step further by inviting the artist, the producer, and the writer of the song we featured last week onto the podcast to give his feedback. Can we welcome Marv Sowell to the Working Audio Tools?
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
So the concept is for this week that the first mix that we gave to Marv last week was what everyone heard on the episode last week. And Marv has then given us some revision notes each, and we've both gone away and we've done a revision. And what you're going to hear later in this episode are those final revisions. And in a bit of a twist of fate in this story, Marv has actually decided to release this track, and he is going to pick one of these mixes, which he is going to announce at the end of the episode.
Suspense.
Which is just going to add some excitement. We may or may not know which way that's going to go. But just quickly, this track, My Time, was produced by Marv Sowell and Seth McCrary, and the rapper Michael Higgenbottom sang on it. He's now an actor and moved to California, and Shavita Williams sang in the chorus. Jim Fraser played the bass, and Seth played the guitars, and Marv played the synths and the keys. Music written by Seth and Marv, and all the lyrics written by Michael and Shavita. Is that right? Did Shavita write the chorus?
Shavita Williams. Mm-hmm.
But there's one credit you've left off there, which is who programmed the drums. I'm guessing that was your fair work, sir?
I played the drums with one key with a loop.
I thought you were going to say with one hand. Excellent. Well, the drum loop did impress me. That was very good programming, because I listened to that and thought, well, that just sounds like a really tight pocket drummer playing that kick snare hat mic. Boom, off we go. But it was a loop which, as we discussed last week, was a challenge. So moving on from the revision ones, what did you want out of each of our mixes? Where did you want to take them? What stood out as good? What did you need to improve?
Okay, well, we'll start with yours, Ed. When I heard Ed's mix, I immediately liked the vocals a lot. I thought the placement of the instruments was very good. Sometimes when I mix, I like to think of things like a live atmosphere where I'm looking at a stage, and the placement of the instruments is where I visually would look, and Ed did that. But we made a decision early on, I think, between the three of us, that we wanted to replace the guitars with my guitars.
Yep.
So that's something that we all decided right away. And so in both of the revisions that I got from you guys, that was one of the things that we did. But back to Ed's, I think he did a very good job of defining the bass. The bass was more defined in his mix than I think in mine and Paul's. One of the things that I had an issue with was in the drums, the kick drum was a little bit clicky. And I think Ed had mentioned in the first episode that he might have overcooked just a tad. And so he went back and he changed that. I love what he did with the outro, although I did want him to raise the background vocals up half a dB or so. I loved the way at the end, it had, some sustain to it via reverb or delay, whatever it was. So Ed really didn't have much to do, I thought.
Which is a great place to be in. That's not what I got. Ladies, gentlemen, thems and theys. I had a little bit more work to do. But honestly, I just want to give credit to Ed here, because obviously this is a journey on this podcast, and I think that the fact that Ed's, mix one, all he had to do was, change the click of the kick a little bit, and then obviously we both agreed to put Marv's guitars in, which made a lot more sense, and raise the BVGs up, and half a dB in the outro. I mean, Ed, surely that must have been pretty, good feedback for you. Surely that must have been, made you feel pretty good getting that feedback.
Yeah, and I thought I had this one in the bag. Ooh, maybe I did. Who knows? Suspense till the end. Yeah, I mean, I went back into the session, and this time I was disciplined and didn't do what I have done with other people, which is you go into a mix to do a few mix revisions, and then you hear other things that you want to improve. And then before you know it, you've sent the client back a different mix because you've changed other things they've not asked for. And I didn't do that. This was literally, I went in, I lowered some kick EQ that was the octave below the fundamental, I think about 42 hertz. Lowered that back down to 0. I think I had a 2 dB boost or something. Dipped out a little bit at about 3.5K, which is where the click was, without getting in the way of dipping 4K, which is where there was a quite a nice snare presence, a little bit of bite there. And took a little bit of one of the settings in Emra's Beat Quaker plugin, which is designed for stereo beats. So that was the perfect opportunity to use that plugin. Very, very tiny adjustment, so not much. And also on the low band on my Pandora, I just lowered the threshold a little bit, just so it was not really squashing it, not really lowering the level, but just kind of tucking the impact back a little bit. And then I A-B'd using metric A-B between the Marv's reference mix and my first mix and this mix, and I think I got it somewhere in between. Would you agree? Were you happy with the change there?
Yes.
And I think that has to get us to actually listening to the difference. So what we're going to do is we're going to split it up for you, just so you're not listening to one whole one. We're going to split it up. So we're going to do intro, verse, and then chorus. So you're going to have mix 1, intro, mix 2, intro. Then the verse and the chorus, mix 1, mix 2, and then the outro, mix 1, mix 2. So in the intro, try and focus on the kick more, because I think the intro is a good passage, so you could really actually hear the difference that Ed's made to the kick. And obviously, you know, in the verses and the choruses and stuff, in the first half of the song before the outro, obviously listen to the difference in Marv's guitars, because, you know, Ed didn't change anything in the guitar processing. I'm pretty sure you did have a guitar bus, and that was really all you had, Ed. Pretty sure, right?
I mean, I had a whole guitar bus going on with, you know, delays and reverbs that all got bypassed, but the guitar bus was going through an EQ, which I bypassed, and the rear compressor, which I think had a tiny bit of THD going through it.
Yeah, so just a little bit. But what we'll do is, after you've listened to it, we'll talk to Marv a little bit about how he processed the guitars and a little bit about, you know, the decision making behind that. Basically, long story short, I got to a point where I thought a lot of the feedback from both of us is about the guitars, and Marv wanted it the way that he had envisioned it, something that Ed had talked about previously in the podcast about when it's your own song, you want it to be the way that you intended it. And, you know, when it's your song, you get very close to it.
Yeah.
And that's a production decision. So we didn't see the point in trying to muck about, trying to reverse engineer it.
Because last week we were discussing how difficult it was to reverse engineer, and then we just thought, well, Marv has done such a good job on the guitars in the first place, so we all agreed to embrace that, and I think the difference speaks for itself.
So let's hear Ed's mix 1 versus mix 2.
The hardest artist ever to emerge from darkness. Got them reading they thesaurus cause they vocab is garbage. If they ain't talking about nothing, I'ma rip them apart. And I ain't even gotta rap about the clothes and the cars. Tell me how it feel to look at a star like an astrologist. An ego like I'm T.O. but rock like I'm in politics. Here to change the game similar to what Obama did. Making sure you get no bumps like dermatologists. My name's synonymous with dominance. The problem is my name's anonymous. They look at me like I'm a communist. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pads for real.
Stop me, the clouds and move. It's my time.
It's my time. It's my time. Like the hardest artist ever to emerge from darkness. Got them reading they thesaurus cause they vocab is garbage. If they ain't talking about nothing, I'ma rip them apart. And I ain't even gotta rap about the clothes and the cars. Tell me how it feel to look at a star like an astrologist. An ego like I'm T.O. but rock like I'm in politics. Here to change the game similar to what Obama did. Making sure you get no bumps like dermatologists. My name's synonymous with dominance. The problem is my name's anonymous. They look at me like I'm a communist. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pats for
Nothing's
real.
gonna stop me. The clouds are moving. It's my time.
Open.
There you go. That is mix 1, mix 2. Obviously, there isn't much that's changed, really, because he didn't have to do much. That's the sign of a good mixer, when you only have, like, very minute revisions to do. But obviously, one big change that you'll hear is the guitars. Obviously, we had to use Marv's processing. Now, one thing I found very difficult was trying to get the verb right and the decay right. And obviously, when we got the feedback from yourself, Marv, we found that the decay was something that was very important to you. And obviously you had, the guitars different, the verb going left and right. Talk us through a little bit of your guitar processing, what you did to try and get that, specific sound of the verbs and, EQ processing. Did you have any compression? And give us a little bit of an insight on how you process the guitars.
Well, it starts with a great player, and Seth was an incredible guitar player. So yeah, we used Waves GTR for that guitar part that's been out for many, many years. And we were able to get a really good sound from a clean amp by using the pedal board that was built in, and we had a wah pedal, and then that went into a spring reverb. And because of the part being as rhythmic as it was, when he would go to it on the downbeat of the chord, the reverb would extend, and it just had this pleasant sound sitting in the track. And that's one of the things I really liked that Ed's mix didn't have. And that was another thing that we were going to have to try to recreate. So we said, why go to all this trouble to recreate all this when we can just use that? But aside from the spring reverb and the wah pedal, I think there was an EQ pedal as well that we did a little bit with. But that went into, I did a high pass with Q3, and then I went directly into an SSL channel strip, a 4000E. And EQ'd it to taste, and that was it.
And this decision brought up a bit of an interesting conundrum for me, because as a wannabe professional mix engineer, I would like to think I have the skills to reverse engineer sounds that I'm given. But I have to admit, that's not something I've done loads of. I know Paul's done a lot of that on his channel. So it was an interesting concept to have to go to the client and say, hey, so you've done this better than we have. Can we use the original files out of your project, please? But according to one or two of our mentors, that actually happens quite a lot. And what we decided was, purely from a time-saving point of view, there's no point going back and forth. We didn't have time for that. Slot in the original guitars, and the result, I think, as you've all just heard, was noticeably better. So that was a good decision all round.
So, yeah, I think that the good thing, to take from this is that, Ed's process was relatively simple. He'd done a very good mix 1, sent it to the client told him exactly what he needed, sent it back, and, Marv's happy with it. So, actually, the question is, Marv, is there anything else that you would have? Would there be any more revisions you would have for Ed?
Good question.
Is there any? Yeah. Now, would there be a mix 3? Oh,
not at this point.
There's a pause. So listening to did Ed meet the brief? Imagine it was just Ed on his own.
I can tell you right now. When I heard his revision back to me, I thought that it was the mix. Now, I might have had him bring up the background vocals one little more half a dB, but that would be it.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. Don't forget, you can't just upload your songs to Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, or Tidal. You have to go through a music distribution service. There are many out there, but DistroKid is the one that Paul and myself use. They don't take any of your royalties. You keep 100% of the streaming revenue that you earn. For just $1.92 a month or $22.99 a year, you can upload unlimited songs. Your lyrics can be found in Google and other places. You get the blue Spotify verified checkmark, and you can create royalty splits between yourselves and fellow contributors. You also get access to the new DistroKid iPhone app for editing and uploading songs and accessing your statistics on the move. There are plenty of other tools available on DistroKid. We'll go through those in another section.
But let's dive into your first mix, Paul. So, guitars aside, we know what happened with those. Marv, what was your feedback to Paul regarding his first mix to his second mix?
So one of the first things that jumped out at me that I did not like on Paul's mix was I felt that the vocals were overprocessed. They sounded a bit thin and saturated to me in comparison to Ed's. If you go back to my mix, even though Ed brought my vocals forward more and improved them, they were still kind of, not overly processed. And so there was a great contrast between Ed's and Paul's vocals, and I was leaning towards Ed. So I wanted to, in my revisions to Paul, I asked that to back that off a bit. And there was the part that Paul got creative on that he brought up in the first episode that he said, Marv's going to tell me to take this out. Well,
I know you did.
I did. So I wanted that out. It seems like I was leaning towards Ed's bass more too, being more defined than Paul's. And so I wanted Paul to define that more. And another big one was the placement Paul used. The lead guitar was more to the center.
Yeah.
And he honored my original mix by having the Rhodes to the right. But then I decided that I didn't like that, and Ed had made a creative decision to move it to the middle, which I did like. So I wanted the placement of the guitars to be more like my original. And so that was another thing. And then on the end of Paul's mix, at the very end, it stopped abruptly, and Ed's and mine kind of extended with reverb or delay, whatever. And I didn't like the abrupt stop.
Now, what I love about this, and people will find this really funny, is that the one thing out of all the things that Marv said to me, it's fine, don't touch it, was the drums. Fucking Mr.
I forgot
Drummer.
about that.
Mr. Drummer had to change the kick, and my drums were fine. But yeah, I think
We've
at
swapped.
the end of the
I got the vocals right. You got the drums
I
right.
know, I know. I think at the end of the day, you were completely justified, because I made a cardinal sin, which is I decided to mix on a different pair of headphones because it made sense, because I was reviewing a pair of headphones for the Mix Phones channel. And yeah, at the time, we didn't know that this was maybe potentially going to be like a paid gig. We just thought it was going to be a mix for the podcast. And I mixed on the FIO FD1 Pros, and they're just way too forgiving. Way too forgiving. Like low end, it's got the extension in there, but they're 180 quid. They're just too forgiving, not enough micro details. And what I thought was really like energetic was like distorted, at the end of the outro vocal, and there was a little bit too much compression going on. And it was almost like I tried to make the mix exciting, because that's what I wanted it to sound like. But the headphones themselves aren't meant to sound that way. But because I was learning them, I made that a royal fuck up of it. Now, what was funny was when we did the podcast episode, there was a few people that like mine, and there's a few people that like Ed's, and there's, I remember one person was like, the Paul Third vocal sound, you can't beat it. And I was sitting there thinking back going, when I got the MX4s out, I was like, okay, this isn't right at all. But I think,
yeah, I was thinking that's confirmation bias in action right there.
Yeah.
Paul Third's vocal sound.
So I had a question for you and Paul, and that is, when you get a revision from a client, do you ever take it to heart and go, I just don't agree with this, they just don't know what they're talking about? Or do you just move forward for the client?
I think, honestly, this is more related to me, because Ed didn't really have to do anything. so he really agreed with each other.
Well, I still have an opinion.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, look, I made a few production decisions that I shouldn't have done. I did the end because I thought it sounded right for me, the vibe I thought I wanted to go for. And then again, I changed the breakdown, which I didn't like, because I wanted to make it smaller. But really what I should have done was I just should have stuck to your intention, because it's not my job to make production decisions. I'm not the producer. I'm just a mix engineer. You're only giving it to me to, make the mix maybe 5 to 10% better. So, I don't get offended if, somebody, it's their song and they turn around to me and say, I don't like that, put it back. Cool. As a mixer, you cannot be invested in your own tastes, in your own vision, because it's not your vision. That's not what you're paid for. So to answer your question, Marv, I never ever get offended. And to be honest with you, this was a lesson of just do what the client wants. Because then what I had to do is I had to then go back and change a few things, because I thought I wanted things to sound a certain way, when really I just should have stuck even closer to the rough. Because it's funny, because people on the episode were like, oh yeah, Paul's honoured the rough in certain ways, but I think at the end of the day, I made a terrible decision mixing on headphones that I didn't know that well, and I wouldn't mix on them again. But I corrected it, which is the good thing. So I think it's a much better mix, because I went and flipped over to the MX4s, and straight as I went on to the MX4s, they told me, right, the vocals are too choked. So I could see. Now, did you compress the the vocals? Did you compress them on the way in, Marv?
Slightly, about 3 dB maybe, right, 3 to 5 dB.
What about on the outro? Because you can see it, and even the waveform, it seems to be a lot more compressed. That
was my mistake. I actually automated it up.
Right, okay. Right, so what happened with me, and what if you listen to the first mix, is that my vocal starts to come a little bit squashed, and actually it adds a little bit of distortion because it's pushing into the vocal chain. So obviously that automation that Marv's added is almost like it's been clip gained up. So input-wise, it was feeding a lot more, and because of the headphones I was using, they were very forgiving, I couldn't really hear the distortion because they're a headphone that just are very forgiving, and it's like, it's fine, just add a little bit of energy, add a little bit of vibe.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that when you've got a new client that you don't want to use a tool you're not familiar with. I saw a mixer talking about he was on NS10s for years, and he had very happy clients with all of his mixes. He was just nailing them out of the park and no revisions. And then he decided one day, those Amphion's look very nice, and decided to upgrade. And his clients within the first few weeks were saying, "What's wrong? Your mixes aren't what they need to be."
I mean, they're very different speakers, but that's a...
But he knew those NS10s.
Yeah.
He knew, he was getting a particular sound, and that's what his clients came to expect.
To emerge from darkness. Got them reading they thesaurus cause they vocab is garbage. If they ain't talking about nothing, I'ma rip them apart. And I ain't even gotta rap about the clothes and the cars. Tell me how it feel to look at a star like an astrologist. An ego like I'm T.O. but rock like I'm in politics. Here to change the game similar to what Obama did. Making sure you get no bumps like dermatologists. My name's synonymous with dominance. The problem is my name's anonymous. They look at me like I'm a communist. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pads for real.
Stop me. The clouds are moved. It's my time.
It's my time, y'all. It's my time. Open mic. Artists ever to emerge from darkness. Got them reading they thesaurus cause they vocab is garbage. If they ain't talking about nothing, I'ma rip them apart. And I ain't even gotta rap about the clothes and the cars. Tell me how it feel to look at a star like an astrologist. An ego like I'm T.O. but rock like I'm in politics. Here to change the game similar to what Obama did. Making sure you get no bumps like dermatologists. My name's synonymous with dominance. The problem is my name's anonymous. They look at me like I'm a communist. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pads for real.
Stop me. The clouds are moved. It's my time.
It's my time, y'all. It's my time. Open.
Right, so Marv, if we think about just the intro and the verse and the choruses, what was it that you felt that I did better on this revision? Or actually, did you think, that's the question, did you think I did a better job, mix 1 to mix 2? Just focus on intro and verses.
Well, if you remember, when I received Ed's second mix, I thought that the deal was over.
Yep.
And Paul Third came in like the Karate Kid that was about to be defeated.
The autistic Jedi.
and threw like some major punches. And it's a lot more than just one thing. It's the entire sound of the entire track.
Mm-hmm.
I toggled it on Pro Tools. I had all of the mixes lined up in Pro Tools on different tracks, and I had it in toggle solo mode where I could, in real time, switch between tracks. And
did you level match them?
Yes, I did. And when I would switch from my mix or Ed's mix to Paul's mix, it's like it just opened up. There was something about the mid-range and the high end while retaining the low end that was there that was amazing. And I immediately knew that was going to be it.
Yep, Paul did come back with an outrageously good mix and smashed it out of the park. And is there a secret ingredient to this as well, Paul? All right, annoyingly, at this point, listeners, I have to apologize. Due to technical issues, we lost Paul while we were recording this episode, and due to time restraints and scheduling between the three of us, we couldn't rearrange to do this another time. So I'm going to continue this with Marv, but you know now that Paul was awarded the mix of this, so congratulations to Paul. He has done an outrageous job, and we'll play it in its entirety at the end. But I mean, Marv, what was it for you that really stood that mix out? Because there's just a depth and a width and a cohesiveness to what he's delivered, which, you know, it proves the point he should have done this in the first place on the headphones that he knew. But lesson learned. What was it for you that really stood out?
The vocals.
Right, okay.
Yours were up front and very nice, but his had just something about him. I can't even, come up with words to describe it.
I think what it was, that he's got a slightly higher range of... and Paul's back in the room. All right, I've just announced that you're not here, Paul, so surprise everyone. Paul is back.
Apologies to everybody, and I apologise to Ed, future Ed, for when editing this video. I promise my internet will never do this again. I apologise to everybody. I apologise to Marv. I apologise to Ed. I'm sorry. I keep on cutting in and out, which is the worst time, because it's probably the best time for me to be here.
We've just been picking Marv's brains about what it was about your mix that particularly stood out, and he's just said the vocals, and I was just saying there was something, just a slight edge in the upper mid-range in terms of, was it harmonic content? I went back into my mix, having heard yours, even though, the decision's been made just for my own reference, and I tried playing around with Spectre, adding about 5 or 6K back in to give it that little bit more of a lift. What was it that you'd done compared to mine, do you think?
To be honest with you, the vocals was a big thing. I basically just went back to the way I used to do things. I think recently I've been kind of trying to add a little bit more level and a little bit more compression with Vocal Shaper, and I think trying to do all the compression that I do, the vocal compression stacks and the parallel compression and stereo and stuff, but trying to also add parallel compression and trying to add in Emra's leveler, it was too much. It just doesn't need it. That's like I'm trying to fix something that isn't broken. So I just went back to the way I've always done my vocal sound. And then from there, it was just a case of trying to, just get things sounding neutral and balanced. I think that's what your mix was like a kind of reference point for me, where I was like, right, just any time I'd listen to it, I'd go, right, Ed's mix is maybe a bit like flatter sounding, but is my mix too hyped? That's what I learned from the first mix. And then when I had the MX4s, I just knew I could trust them. And so it was all about trying to get more excitement, but still, when I A-B'd between my mix and your mix, there wasn't that much of a difference. But one of the big things I think that helped was the bass. I think I didn't have enough mid-range energy in the bass because I referenced Marv's reference mix a lot, and you had your bass quite kind of sat back and a little bit rounded, where when you, in the reflection notes, you had said to me, I want the bass to have a little bit more distinction. So I genuinely just went back to Bass Shaper and I was like, right, I know what I need to do now. added a little bit more sustain, added a little bit more of the higher upper band, so it's added in like higher upper saturation. And then I went to stage 1 and I put a little bit of mono spread just so I could sit the bass more like around the kit. So then you had the energy of the bass coming through, had a bit more upper mid-range. And I think overall that allowed me to try and like sit a little bit better with the guitars. Because somebody made a comment last week about the bass being really important in this track. So for me, it was like, right, I've got the low end, right, but I just need to try and get the upper mids, right. So when I was listening to mono on my phone, I wasn't really getting the bass much. So I knew, right, okay, maybe I need to add a little bit more upper harmonics. And then when I had it kind of sound in the way that I wanted it to sound, it was probably Mix Boss. Used probably, I don't know if it's out yet.
It'll be out when it'll have come out yesterday when this episode goes
Friday.
live. But yes, Mix Boss was the secret sauce.
It was.
I've got my credit card ready.
We were going to get to. So Mix Boss is Emra Chelik's new plugin with WA Productions.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got into Emra's plugins yet with WA Productions, please do. We talk about them all the time on the podcast. Paul and I will no doubt be doing YouTube content soon covering them. But Paul has used Mix Boss on his mix, and I was like, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
But what he'd achieved was the depth and the width and the cohesiveness and the balance and the evenness and the smoothness of everything was there. I've downloaded it today and put it on my mix, and straight away, that's the difference.
It is, yeah.
I mean, you know, it's subjective to a few different details, but it's killer. I can't believe I've lost a mix due to a plugin.
I know, it's crazy, yeah.
It is. I literally messaged Emra. I used it for maybe 30 seconds, and I messaged Paul and Emra, and I'm like, what the fuck is this wizardry? And then I overused it and abused it, and then my computer just couldn't handle the CPU load, so I've left it for now. But my personal revision for myself for my website will have that on.
One thing I forgot to mention about Paul's mix, as soon as I brought it up, it had like the essence of the Spice Girls or something.
Just that lovely tonal balance between the vocals, eh?
Marv, can you sing which song you mean? And which Spice Girl are you?
If I could inspire anybody to sound more like the Spice Girls, then my job is done here. My job is done.
Yeah. Excellent.
But I think in terms of the outro, that was the thing I worked the most on, because outro is difficult, because it's essentially quite a simple mix, really, leading up to the outro, because you don't have that many instruments to deal with. You've got a drum, fucking stereo stem. But the outro is where it gets tricky, because the energy lifts, and you've then got to try and get that to kind of explode a little bit. So what I actually did was, I don't know if you noticed it, and I don't know if you noticed, Marv, but I actually see the breakdown. I put the guitar back the way you wanted it, but I actually brought the breakdown down by 1.5 dB. But I did it in a way where you don't notice it. It's not like I tried to do a little bit of a fade in it, so it kind of fades down. So what I found was the outro was difficult, because in your reference mix, it's like that. It's like you've got the waveform, and then the outro is like that. So when it's when you're pushing it into the limiter,
sausage.
Yeah. So when you're pushing it into the limiter's like the outro comes bap 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 bap, which was difficult. So I had to try and get the outro to kind of be roughly the same kind of level as the rest of the song, kind of. So I brought that breakdown down by 1.5 dB, and I think maybe the outro is 1 dB louder than the verse and the chorus. So you're still getting that lift. And that way I found, because you did say that you felt the outro was a little bit crushed in my mix, because I didn't really do a good job in trying to manage, that jump in level. Mm-hmm. So I managed that, and then it was just, trying to get things to sit a little bit wider, and trying to get, because I think what Ed did really well in his mix 1, and actually mix 2, because he didn't change it, was the strings. Now I know you've told me you feel I did a better job on it, but I think my mix 1, and your mix 1, yours, the violin, that kind of rhythmic element, I was like, Ed did a better job there, because it is important to have that.
That's where the energy is in the outro.
Is. So I was all about finding space for it, and I was quite glad that the MX4s managed to just give me enough of the sound stage where I was able to, in the imaging, to say, right, place that there. A bit of stage 1. There's quite a lot of stage 1, as I always do. I'm always abusing the depth function in stage 1 to set certain things back. So the strings are 100% stage 1, 100% depth, just to set them right back. And then
what else I really liked was you added delay to that guitar. I think you had that in the first one too, but it was to me, it was more audible in the second mix, and it was adding a lot of depth. And, and
you kept it on Marv's process guitars?
I did, yeah. Kept it.
Flirty.
And the background vocals that I'd asked Ed to turn up, I think they were at the right level in Paul's mix, and they had the swimming around my head effect that I wanted.
What did you do on the vocals at the end? Did you use Dynawide?
Yeah, so on the backing vocals, I just felt like everything needed to be wider. And I kind of felt like that, I mean, you're right, in mix one, the backing vocals are getting kind of collapses in a little bit because everything else is kind of taking priority. So I had to think, right, how do I get these backing vocals? They are important because they really do solidify a lot of the lines that he's bringing in. Especially there's a bit that was like 2 mile. I'm like, right, that's really got to be quite audible. So what I did was I stuck Dynawide on it, which I do sometimes. I've got 2 certain things that I use now. If I need to create width, I'll go to stage 1 first, try the width, and then if not that, I'll try Dynawide. It doesn't work all the time, but I did it on the pianos. I did Dynawide on the pianos, but it was a backing vocal. Honestly, see Emra's presets, golden. Remember in the Mark Daniel Nelson mix with the congas? Fucking brilliant. And so I did it on the backing vocals, and it was a backing vocal preset. I think he's got 3, and I stuck it in, and what it did, it just stuck the backing vocal there at the periphery of the mix, and it just changed the tonal balance a little bit, where it just allowed itself to so in the verse and the chorus, it's kind of here, behind the vocal, and then in the outro, it's there. It's like sitting here, and then it allows everything else just to come out. But the outro was quite difficult. But once I got the dynamics sorted, I knew that the limiter wasn't getting pushed too hard. Then I knew that, right, I've got the dynamics there. It's not pushing too hard. I added saturation on the drums in the outro in the first mix, and I took that off. And it was just kind of elements of less is more, but it was really the referencing on the MX4s. The MX4s are nearly £3,000, and I would love to tell people, yeah, you could mix on £190 headphones and beat Ed Thorne. You can't do it. I'm sorry, you're not going to beat Ed Thorne on a pair of £180 headphones. Maybe Emra would give it a good go.
The assassin would probably nail it, yeah.
But no, I think...
also like the delay on the guitar at the end that extends.
Yeah, because you know what, that was just a fluke. See, because I already had the guitar on, and I know that you mentioned you wanted some delay on the end, so I went, that's probably the delay that he's looking for. But I just genuinely, Mix 2 was just all about trying to still give you a Paul Third mix, but trying to give you the things that I know you liked in Ed's mix, and then giving you a Paul Third representation of that. Because we spoke about it last week, where I never, ever, and again, I've said to Ed, don't take this a bad way, but me and him are the same. I don't want to sound like Ed, and Ed doesn't want to sound like me. Like, there's certain elements where I'll go, fuck, he did that better than me. Yeah, I'm going to try and do it the way Ed did it. But at the end of the day, we still want you to listen to a mix and go, that's Ed Thorne and that's Paul Third. Because we are 2 different people, and that's what's good about mixing engineers. That's what stops us from getting swallowed up by AI, is having that level of taste, where you could get Brower, CLA, TLA, fucking Serbin, Spike, Manny, Jason, Tony Medina. You can get all of these people, and they'll all sound different, and that's the beauty of mixing. That's what AI cannot recreate. They cannot recreate, the experimentation that I had, where I thought I had the mix sounding pretty good, but I think it needed to be a little bit glued and cohesive. I didn't want to go to Ozone. No, but I'll try Emra Chelik's new Mixbox plugin. Then all of a sudden I'm like, width. Okay, take the width out in master plan. Oh, this width's really nice. Okay, God Particle. Take God Particle off. Use his 3-band multiband that's basically God Particle. Okay, that's working really well. And then, the balance knob. I don't know if it's like a Gullfoss thing, but see, I think I had it to 35%, and it was better than mix bus compression. It's almost like mix bus compression, but better. And it just kind of brought everything together.
It's spectral balancing, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, the kick just kind of got squeezed in a little bit. It was just amazing.
It's unbelievable what that plugin does.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that if I didn't have Mixboss, I think Ed's mix would have maybe, he won't want to hear this, I think he maybe would have edged it. Because the mix is still good. Mixboss isn't like fucking adding 30%, but it's adding a good 5-10%. And sometimes that 5-10%
I want to hear your mix without it now.
I'll send you.
Just in case I am blaming a plugin. No, I mean, either way, whatever happened, you smashed that mix out of the park, and you deserve to win that. You did a really, really good job. But I am, for my own reference, going to do another version with Mixboss. And so far, I've taken off a couple of plugins off my master bus, and it's just sounding bigger and wider and deeper and smoother and better than ever. So it's a cheat card, and it will be out today. We'll put a link in the description if I remember.
Keep on moving.
They were staring when I had the LeBaron. Transmission was missing back when I had to tap the starter just to start the ignition. Quick to find religion when we know we facing eviction. Knowing our lights could get cut out any minute. Not the type to be dependent, not to mention aiding off for assistance. Barely made enough to even keep some food in the kitchen. 2 mile distance back and forth, working in cashier position. I ain't tripping, dude. I looked at it like physical fitness. This is my life, my story, my pain. I mean my glory. It came so sporadically, automatically changed. My mind frame is different, no longer diligent. The passion is passing, time is clashing with my dreams like it's playing with the latest fashion. No longer innocent, and I've been in it since Ice Cube was militant. Guess it was imminent, I had to progress, but accepting that it's over, such a hard process. Ain't even harder to digest. It's knowing you talented, just seeing just how low your banking account balance is. I knew eventually I paid for mistakes. Now big it takes is take the place of any mistakes on my plate. From the place where you can meet your fate, think that you're safe. You better know some combinations like you breaking the safe. Lyrically, I'm sick with it. I'm not rapping, I teach. My syllabus is ridiculous. I'm out of your league. Yeah.
I gotta keep on moving.
They were staring when I had the LeBaron. Transmission was missing back when I had to tap the starter just to start the ignition. Quick to find religion when we know we facing eviction. Knowing our lights could get cut out any minute. Not the type to be dependent, not to mention aiding off for assistance. Barely made enough to even keep some food in the kitchen. 2 mile distance back and forth, working in cashier position. I ain't tripping, dude. I looked at it like physical fitness. This is my life, my story, my pain. I mean my glory. It came so sporadically, automatically changed. My mind frame is different, no longer diligent. The passion is passing, time is clashing with my dreams like it's playing with the latest fashion. No longer innocent, and I've been in it since Ice Cube was militant. Guess it was imminent, I had to progress, but accepting that it's over, such a hard process. Ain't even harder to digest. It's knowing you talented, just seeing just how low your banking account balance is. I knew eventually I paid for mistakes. Now big it takes is take the place of any mistakes on my plate. From the place where you can meet your fate, think that you're safe. You better know some combinations like you breaking a safe. Lyrically, I'm sick with it. I'm not rapping, I teach. My syllabus is ridiculous. I'm out of your league. Yeah.
And so the final question is, right now I know that I've got the mix, which is amazing. That's great for me at this stage of my career. And also, because by the way, right, I always had this day in my head because I remember when we had the present day production, it was like a mix battle. And Mark talked so highly of Ed's, and rightly so. And I knew, and I still listen to that Can't Stop mix that Ed did, and I'm like, fuck, he did. It was a good mix, mate. It was.
Right, thank you.
It was a good mix. And I always remember going, he did something there that just made people go, wow, you nailed that out of the park. And I think that's what I've kind of managed to achieve here in the second mix. So it's amazing how, you could just sometimes fly off the seat of your pants and make it work, and then all of a sudden the client's like, where did you pull that from? Where did that come from? But yeah, there'll be ups and downs, but I think at the end of the day, what is amazing, Ed, is that as much as it's good for me to say, knock the mix out of the park, your mix still was going to be the one that was going to be released, and you only had 2 feedbacks. That was it. That was 2 revision notes. That was it. That is a good place to be in.
It was pretty good, but I've given myself about 3 revision notes having listened to yours. And
well, this was a case where it was like I didn't know what I wanted until I heard it.
Yeah, I know.
Because I was, Ed was right there.
But I'm glad we had this process because I think you've got arguably the best result you could get. Paul, that mix is like, I was thinking today, like, how are people like Spike Stent and that doing these kind of mixes without that plugin? But with that and your skill, you're in that league.
Yeah, because what I loved about Mixboss the most, and it's something that I still take pride in, was that I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't read the manual. And I was just like, right, okay, I kind of know this is God Particle, but genuinely, see when I added the depth, and again, it's got like a mix knob on that, and the balance of the mix knob, that was all to ear. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just went, oof, that sounds right, that sounds about right, that sounds about right. So it wasn't even like it was a preset, I was still listening and using your ears at the end of the day, which is the most important. And that's what I love about Mixboss, is that it's still, you could still mix into it, but you could still use your ears. Like, you could genuinely just mix into the limiter in the post EQ, the Mixboss EQ that he's got in it, and then just add, the depth and the width and, the balance at the very end. You know what I mean? Just as a final, or you can mix into it. But honestly, Emre is he's just knocking stuff out of the park. And thankfully,
it's the kind of thing where what I used to do is do my mix and then add the mix bus processing. But by the time you've realised your gain staging's fucked, when you go into a limiter, that's the wrong way around to do it. But what you can do with that is go into your limiter, like master plan, everything as normal, and then add the depth and the width, and if you want the colour, and that's just going to be the chef's kiss that I was looking for previously.
And there's something we didn't try either, Ed, because I didn't try the limiter, but Emra's, you could tell he's a bit annoyed at me, because he's like, Paul, I tried to make the limiter as good or as better than master plan. And I'm like, I just thought it was like a standard limiter you stuck in. He was like, no, I've tried to make it.
I've used it to maybe
good.
5-10%, and it does something.
Yeah, I know.
I'll get another revision up on my website.
So this new plugin that's coming out today or tomorrow, is that basically what it is? It's a mix bus plugin to mix into?
Yep.
Okay.
And no, it's the scariest thing. And again, I genuinely, before the call, I actually left Emre a voice note, and I know people will be like, Paul, how dare you? I said to Emre, this is too cheap. He's told me it's going to be $18. I'm like, Emre,
come on.
Emre, that's it. Like, Emre, you deserve to charge more for that.
It needs to be $180.
He was like, as an intro price, it's going to be $18. And that's what I love about Emre. Emre, like, looks after his people. Again, see, in Turkey, like, things cost way, way, way more than it does for us. And he's like, no, I want everybody to have the tools that I have, that I wish I had. And it doesn't matter if you've got a big budget or a small budget, you could do it. That man's going to change the game, honestly. Everybody will be using, I guarantee you, everybody will be using Mixboss. It'll be all over YouTube. Everybody will be watching it. And especially after if they've just watched this episode and heard the difference between my Mix 1 and Mix 2, everybody will be like, right, that is the best selling, that is the best marketing tool ever. That's what I'm going to go for.
Absolutely.
But yeah, honestly, Marv, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to work on this. It's always great.
Really enjoyed it.
It's always great to have really good recordings. And at the end of the day, right, I think the great thing for you as well is that you've obviously had some learning as well. What's been the learning for you in terms of you taking your own mixes and, trying to say, like, is there anything you're going to change in your mixing approach after this experience?
Absolutely. I'm going to buy that plug-in.
That's all we need.
So, hopefully for you guys, it doesn't get to the point where I use that plug-in and you're like, we can't do anything with this.
We're unemployed again.
Yeah.
No, I've learned a lot over the past year. I retired from an aviation job at 31 years, and I'm getting back into this. It's always been in my blood since I was 13 to play music, and I got into recording early on. But in the past few years, I've really been focusing on my skills with learning more about audio production and mixing and so on and so forth. And what I've learned the most is talking about the mix bus and how you hit your limiter and things like that is how important it is to filter out things that you don't need on a per track level, like low end information on vocals, guitars sometimes, and that really makes a difference on how loud you can get your mix.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've learned about clip gain. Instead of just jumping into using my plugins, I'll utilize clip gain. And then when I go into my plugins, I actually gain stage from plugin to plugin, where before I would just start hitting everything,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm learning a lot.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. For a little bit more, $39.99 a month, you can have 2 artists on your roster, which includes everything just mentioned. Additionally, synced lyrics in Apple Music, further streaming analytics statistics. You can create a customizable record name. Mine, for example, is Ed Thorne Rhythm and Records. And you can customize release dates, pre-order dates, iTunes pricing, and again, much more. Now, if you're an artist manager or a record label, the Ultimate Bundle gives you up to 100 artists for just $89.99 a year. And you get 1 terabyte of instant file sharing, which is useful, but also contact information for thousands of playlist curators on Spotify. This is really useful so you can pitch your artist music to playlist curators around the world, only available in the Ultimate Bundle from DistroKid.
So what is the future for you, Marv? What is the next step for you? Because I know that you said you were going to release this, but you also say you were going to release more songs as well. And there's a nice little backstory, I think, that's quite touching to talk about. It'll be a good and really nice emotional way to end the podcast. You were telling us earlier at the start about, you know, the songs that you were going to release, and give us a little bit of a little backstory there.
Yes, Seth McCrary, God rest his soul, passed away in 2018, and he was my nephew, but also we were very close writing partners, and we just, anytime we'd get in the studio, we would just come out with just really good stuff, like, as an example, this song. It's been many years since we recorded the song, and then he passed away, and I got to thinking, as I've gone into retirement and I have time to finish things that I never was able to finish, that it would be very rewarding to release these songs. There's 2 more that are associated with this project, and do them in his memory.
It's amazing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And again, we're blessed to be able to get the opportunity to work on these as well.
Oh, you know what I've gathered from this too, and you've talked about it in other episodes, is the importance of relationships and liking the people that you work with. And I think that this, is a good example of that, I like working with you guys, and I don't think I'm a difficult client.
No, you're very easy to work with, man. Very easy to work with.
Yeah, conscientious client with good ears and knows what you want. Can't ask for... I mean, anyone who gives me 1 revision with 2 notes, that's a good client in my book.
So, Ed, to kind of finish up, right, what do you think people can learn from this experience that we've been able to share? What do you think are the main learnings for people?
Oh, wow. Good question. It's fascinating not just to hear our perspectives on the mix, but a third person's perspective, and obviously the writer and the creator, and, another instrumentalist as well. There's so many ways these things can go, and I think what's been great is that the 3 of us have challenged each other, you and I, Paul, and then Marv has given us our own assignments to go away and work on things and improve things. And I think the result Marv has got with your mix is spectacular and as good as a mix as he could get. I literally can't imagine. I'd almost be tempted to open the challenge up. Can anyone beat Paul's mix on this?
Oh, there will be people on the internet that will
there will be
lavish.
people who'll try.
I will say that we're not done, though. I am going to have 1 or 2 small little revisions.
Yes.
Oh. Well, can we talk about what they are?
Yeah. Let's talk about them right before we end up. Just so I know what I've got to do.
When I was talking about, sometimes I like to look at the mix as a stage, like at a live performance, and visually that this guitar player's over here, and I'm hearing him over here, and so the placement, I would like, and even in Paul's great mix, I still would like to separate the lead and the rhythm a little more out.
Right, okay.
All right, that has definitely been an emotional episode. Congratulations to Paul for winning himself a client there. Well done. And to play you out, we're going to play you my mix in its entirety and Paul's mix in its entirety. And then keep an eye on Marv's socials that we'll post in the description below. And no doubt you'll see when the released final version is out. Marv, thank you for coming on and spending time with us. It's been a fantastic experience. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thanks to DistroKid for facilitating this podcast happening. Thanks, Paul, for being such a fierce competitor in this challenge. It's great that we're
Karate Kid.
Yeah, it's great that we're both pushing each other to excellence, which is what we like. And it's been emotional. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
like the hardest artist ever to emerge from darkness. Got them reading they thesaurus cause they vocab is garbage. If they ain't talking about nothing, I'ma rip them apart. And I ain't even gotta rap about the clothes and the cars. Tell me how it feel to look at a star like an astrologist. An ego like I'm T.O. but rock like I'm in politics. Here to change the game similar to what Obama did. Making sure you get no bumps like dermatologists. My name's synonymous with dominance. The problem is my name's anonymous. They look at me like I'm a communist. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pats for real.
Nothing's gonna stop me. The clouds are moved. It's my time.
Open mic Friday nights, local bars, I was a star. Twisting up cigars before we got out the car. Tipsy off whiskey sours, spitting freeze for hours. Over the instrumentals like they beats was ours. Wasn't lacking ambition, it's the cash that was missing. Then I moved back out to Memphis right when Dash got convicted. That's how quick it get twisted. Dreams diminished in the instant. What once was in your grasp now distant. Pay attention. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pads for real.
Yeah, yo. Where my notoriety, you know what I'm saying? It's my
Nothing's
time.
gonna stop me. The clouds are moved. It's my time. No more clouds in my way. No more haters.
No more haters, huh?
Gotta make it happen. I can see the light, the break of day. Gotta keep on moving.
They weren't staring when I had the LeBaron. Transmission was missing back when I had to tap the starter just to start the ignition. Quick to find religion when we know we facing eviction. Knowing our lights could get cut out any minute. Not the type to be dependent, not to mention aiding off for assistance. Barely made enough to even keep some food in the kitchen. 2 mile distance, back and forth, working in cashier position. I ain't tripping, dude, I looked at it like physical fitness. This is my life, my story, my pain. I mean my glory, it came so sporadically, automatically changed. My mind frame is different, no longer diligent. The passion is passing, time is clashing with my dreams like it's plaid with the latest fashion. No longer innocent, and I've been in it since Ice Cube was militant. Guess it was imminent, I had to progress, but accepting that it's over, such a hard process. Ain't even harder to digest. It's knowing you talented, just seeing just how low your banking account balance is. I knew eventually I paid for mistakes. Now big it takes is take the place of any mistakes on my plate. From the place where you can meet your fate, think that you're safe. You better know some combinations like you breaking a safe. Lyrically, I'm sick with it. I'm not rapping, I teach. My syllabus is ridiculous. I'm out of your league. Yeah. Like the hardest artist ever to emerge from darkness. Got them reading they thesaurus cause they vocab is garbage. If they ain't talking about nothing, I'ma rip them apart. And I ain't even gotta rap about the clothes and the cars. Tell me how it feel to look at a star like an astrologist. An ego like I'm T.O. but rock like I'm in politics. Here to change the game similar to what Obama did. Making sure you get no bumps like dermatologists. My name's synonymous with dominance. The problem is my name's anonymous. They look at me like I'm a communist. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pads for
Nothing's
real.
gonna stop me. The clouds are moved. It's my time.
Open mic Friday nights, local lyrical bars, I was a star. Twisting up cigars before we got out the car. Tipsy off whiskey sours, spitting freeze for hours. Over the instrumentals like they beats was ours. Wasn't lacking ambition, it's the cash that was missing. Then I moved back out to Memphis right when Dash got convicted. That's how quick it get twisted. Dreams diminished in the instant. What once was in your grasp, now distant. Pay attention. Till I collapse, I refuse to relax. I do my thing with this rap with my claps and shoulder pads for real.
Yeah, yeah. Where my notoriety, you know what I'm saying? It's my
Nothing's
time.
gonna stop me. The clouds are moved. It's my time. No more clouds in my way. No more haters. Gotta make it happen. I can see the light, the break of day. I gotta keep on moving.
They weren't staring when I had the LeBaron. Transmission was missing back when I had to tap the starter just to start the ignition. Quick to find religion when we know we facing eviction. Knowing our lights could get cut out any minute. Not the type to be dependent, not to mention aiding off for assistance. Barely made enough to even keep some food in the kitchen. 2 mile distance back and forth, working the cashier position. I ain't tripping, dude, I looked at it like physical fitness. This is my life, my story, my pain. I mean my glory, it came so sporadically, automatically changed. My mind frame is different, no longer diligent. The passion is passing, time is clashing with my dreams like it's planned with the latest fashion. No longer innocent, and I've been in it since Ice Cube was militant. Guess it was imminent, I had to progress, but accepting that it's over such a hard process. And even harder to digest is knowing you talented, to seeing just how low your banking account balance is. I knew eventually I paid for mistakes. Now big it takes is take the place of anger stakes on my plate. From the place where you can meet your fate, think that you saint. You better know some combinations like you breaking a safe. Lyrically I'm sick with it, I'm not rapping, I teach. My syllabus is ridiculous, I'm out of your league. Yeah.